So with the NBA preseason already starting, all the major off-season moves have probably been made. It's unlikely we see another thing that happens towards the start of the season, just like the James Harden trade 5 years ago. It's unlikely we see anything like that for the rest of this off-season. So mostly the teams will stay pretty much as they are. A few minor signings, a few minor trades might happen, but I think teams will stay mostly as they are. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the 5 teams I think had the best off-season in 2017. This was one of the most crazy off-seasons in history, and these are the 5 teams I think had the best off-season. At number 5, I've got a kind of a weird one, and it's the Denver Nuggets. I genuinely do think the Denver Nuggets are going to make that step up and be 100% be in the playoffs next year, and could even go up as high as maybe the 5th or 6th seed in the Western Conference. They signed Paul Millsap, who's the perfect player for that team. A veteran, a 4-time All-Star, basically was a 2nd-round pick, and until he went to Atlanta was just a role player, became an All-Star there, can handle the ball, can shoot, can defend, can play at the 3, the 4, and as a small ball 5. A great veteran, really hard worker, a great leader for this team. And you can't forget who the Nuggets actually have. They've got Gary Harris, a really good young player. Juan Hernangomez is a year older. They've also got Jamal Murray, who I think could make a step up this season. I think Moutier could have a good season this year. They've got Mason Plumlee, who's a great rim protector. They've got Nikola Jokic, who's one of the best passing big men in basketball and could be the best center in the NBA in a few years. While more than likely Cat will probably end up being better than them, there's definitely a possibility that Jokic does end up being the best center in basketball. And then they've got Will Barton, who's could easily win 6th Man of the Year, a great scorer. And I haven't even mentioned Kenneth Faried and Wilson Chandler yet, and whatever they can get out of Jameer Nelson. This Denver Nuggets team is a playoff-bound team. I'm almost 100% certain that this team is going to make the playoffs. And I forgot Trey Lyles as well. Had a great rookie year with Utah Jazz. Hasn't been exceptional since then, but is still a solid NBA player. This Denver Nuggets team is really good. And I think the offseason acquisition of Paul Millsap may be the biggest single signing of the offseason. And I think that that's going to be a massive difference for the Denver Nuggets. And for that signing alone, that I put them in the top 5. At number 4, we have got the Boston Celtics. I know you might be saying, oh, the Boston Celtics aren't as good as last year. And that's definitely a possibility. Like, there's no guarantee that they are better than last year. But in my opinion, Kyrie Irving is far better than Isaiah Thomas. They got Jason Tatum in the draft, who's one of the most NBA-ready players that isn't 25 to 30 years old from Europe. They got Gordon Hayward, who's one of the best small forwards in basketball. Marcus Morris was a great return for Avery Bradley, and they still have Al Horford there. And they still have Marcus Smart and Jaylen Brown. They did give up the Nets 2018 pick, which was big because I think that pick is going to be a top 3 in the draft next year. And the draft is honestly so stacked, the top 5 positions next year, that it is a massive pick to lose. But if the Lakers pick ends up 2 to 5, they still have a top 5 pick in next year's draft. But a lot of people are talking about how the Celtics have a lack of depth. Now, obviously, their starting lineup is probably going to be Kyrie Irving, Marcus Smart, Gordon Hayward, either Morris or Tatum, and Al Horford. But then you look at their bench, they've still got a solid bench. They've got the other of Morris and Tatum. They've got Terry Rozier. They've got Aaron Baines, who's not a bad player. They've also got Jaylen Brown, who could make a big step up this year. Then they've got Shane Larkin, who's not awful. He'll be able to hold his own in the NBA. This team, while not as deep as last year, is definitely more top-heavy than last year. But I do think that their starting 5 is better and their bench isn't that much worse, especially if we see improvements made from Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum ends up stepping up big time off the bench, or Marcus Morris steps up big time off the bench. The bench could be as good as last year for all we know. So I genuinely do think that this Celtics team is better than last year, and I think that they had a great offseason. And number 3 is the Oklahoma City Thunder. At the end of the season, we could be talking about this being number 1, and we could also be talking about the Thunder basically destroying their franchise with this offseason, because you just never know what's going to happen. Personally, I don't think that Paul George, Melo, and Westbrook are going to work out. I don't. But the thing is, what did they give up for these guys? They gave up Enes Kanter, who doesn't play any defense. They gave up Doug McDermott, who shoots the ball slightly better than Melo. They gave up Domantas Sabonis, who didn't have a great rookie year, and they also gave up Victor Oladipo, who hasn't really lived up to the hype he had after his first year or two in the NBA. So even if this doesn't work out, it's still worth the risk because they gave up almost nothing for Paul George and Carmelo Anthony. Another massive signing was Patrick Patterson. Patrick Patterson can space the floor. He can play a little bit as a small ball 5, but is a great shooter at the 4 position. I personally think they should start Patrick Patterson at the 4 and Paul George at the 2. But they're not going to do that. They're going to start Melo at the 4, which is a little bit more small ball, but they are a really solid team. And their depth isn't that bad. They've got Abrines off the bench, who you never know, he could come good next year. They've got Raymond Felton, who has shown at times in his NBA career that he's a solid NBA player. You don't know what version of Raymond Felton you're going to get. Jeremy Grant is a very athletic player, can play a decent amount of defense and can attack the basket. You've got Patrick Patterson off the bench. I know he's been absolutely terrible the last few years, but if you can get anything from Kyle Singler, it's a positive. I don't know what happened to him. He was great as a rookie, decent as a sophomore, but as soon as he goes to Oklahoma, he forgets how to play basketball. If they can somehow get anything out of Kyle Singler, he'll be big. Isaiah Cannon could be good for the Thunder. Marco Brown could be good for the Thunder. We just don't know yet. But definitely, they deserve to be in the top 3. Arguably number 1 in a lot of people's minds. I'm not the biggest fan of what they did, but at the same time, they brought in 2 All-Stars with minimal risk. So even if it doesn't work out, it still definitely was worth doing. And even though I don't think it's going to work out, it is still one of the best off seasons in the NBA. And number 2 is the Golden State Warriors. They managed to re-sign Steph Curry. They got Kevin Durant at a really low price because he wanted to keep Iguodala, JaVale McGee and Sean Livingston there. They still got Zaza, they still got Patty McCaw, they still got Clay, and they made some great signings. They signed Omri Caspi, which I think could end up being the free agent signing of the summer. Omri Caspi can play at the 3 or the 4. He can space the floor, and is one of the best shooters in the NBA. Swaggy P, Nick Young, showed last year that while he's not an incredible defender, he showed last year that he's willing to put in effort on the defensive end, which could be big. He's also not afraid of big moments. He's not afraid to play under pressure, and he will be great in this Warrior squad. Michael Benajay could be quite good, a tall point guard to use as a backup for a backup. If Livingston ever goes down injured, he could step in and play a similar role. While Livingston is far better, I still think he could be decent enough. And again, Patty McCaw could end up having a great second year in the league. This Warriors team is probably, on paper, the greatest team of all time. And if this team went for the record, they could probably win 75 games if players didn't get injured. I genuinely do think 75 games is what this team could win. I don't think they're going to go for it, because obviously they want to go and win the NBA championship, and they might have thought that was the reason why they lost in 2016. But I think this team is far better than last year. The chemistry is going to be better. They added shooters. They kept their rim protection with McGee. They kept Zaza to just injure the other team's best player. This is the greatest team I've ever seen, and I think they had an unbelievable offseason this year. And number 1 is the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cleveland Cavaliers had probably the best offseason of any team I have ever seen. And you might think I'm crazy, but that's just my opinion. They got the best possible haul for Kyrie Irving. They got Isaiah Thomas, who, even though he's injured, is probably just a slightly worse version of Kyrie in my opinion. They got Jay Crowder, who's one of the perfect players to play against the Warriors because he can guard Kevin Durant as well as anyone probably can. You've still got LeBron James there for at least this year. You got Derrick Rose on a vet's minimum contract. Derrick Rose averaged 18 points per game last year. And having him off the bench is going to be incredible. He's going to be the playmaker LeBron James wanted. And you've got 4 shooters around Derrick Rose. So he's going to be able to get to the basket with ease. Even though he doesn't have as quick a first step as he had before he got injured, he's still quick. So he's going to do really well. You've got Dwayne Wade, who's probably going to average about 12 points per game this year, but he's going to be the guy who ends every single game with the 2. Whether he starts or not, we don't know, but he will end every game with the 2. You still got J.R. Smith, who, even though he's being overpaid, is still a great player. Same with Iman Shumpert. Iman Shumpert no longer has to play backup point guard, so he can just be a defender off the bench. You got Cedi Osman, who's quite good, to be honest. Like, he's not going to be a Bogdan Bogdanovic and average 10 points a game, but he's a solid player from Europe. You still got Kyle Korver, you still got Kevin Love. Richard Jefferson somehow can still play. You've got Jose Calderon, who probably won't play much in the playoffs, but is a veteran point guard and can still shoot the ball. You still have Channing Frye, who's an expiring contract. You've got Jeff Green, who's one of the most underrated free agent signings of the summer. And they also have the 2018 Nets first round pick, which means they have a very good chance of trading for DeMarcus Cousins if the Pelicans don't work out, which I think they won't. You can trade Shump, Channing Frye, and a 2018 pick for DeMarcus Cousins. And if the Cavs decide they don't want to trade for DeMarcus Cousins and the Nets are really bad, you got the Nets pick, which is probably going to be top 5, meaning you have an opportunity to pick the perfect guy to make LeBron James want to stay in Cleveland. You can pick Luka Doncic. Like, he's not going to be a top 2 pick. No one's going to risk taking him with the top 2. But the Cleveland Cavaliers can get basically the next LeBron type player. He's not going to be a LeBron, but he's a LeBron type player in Luka Doncic. And if LeBron decides to stay, he's basically the perfect teammate for LeBron James as well. Before this offseason, people thought that the Cleveland Cavaliers were going to completely disband at the end of this year, that they weren't even going to be a playoffs team. And now if LeBron stays, they're probably going to be in the finals the next 3 or 4 years. They're getting slightly younger. And they've also got that Nets pick, which they can use to get a DeMarcus Cousins to win now, or they can also use it to help improve the team in the future. So even if LeBron James goes, they're still a solid playoff team in the Eastern Conference, and who knows, might make an Eastern Conference Finals. So because of the fact that we all thought the Cleveland Cavaliers were doomed, considering that LeBron was more than likely going to leave, now even if LeBron leaves, well, they're not going to be in the finals every year, they're not going to be a contender, they still have a bright enough future. And it's not going to be like the last time LeBron James left, where they became the worst team in the NBA. So anyway, that's the video. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe.